Hello, everyone. Very, very good evening to all of you. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Can we have a thumbs up in the. Hi, Rishikesh. Hello, everyone. Lovely to connect with all of you. And welcome to the first training session of what is slated to be a very special conference for all of you here in God's very own country, Kerala. I hope you are all excited as I am, and I'm sure it's going to be great fun. We're going to make a lot of friends. There are more than 300 of you that are going to be out there, and apart from the great fun and the great friendships that we're going to have, we're also going to be having to be prepared ourselves so that once we meet and we discuss on the different agendas we have selected, we have the healthy discussions and debates. So today I'm going to be teaching you about something called the rules of procedure. All right. So, as many of you know, that there is a document called Rules of Procedure that I had shared with all of you along with your allotments. I'd request all of you to open that document as well, maybe on your phones, or even if you don't open, you can even hear me out. And once we done with the session, you can kind of browse through the few points that I'm going to be discussing with you today. Also, sorry about the bad hairstyle. What's the problem with that is that I have my barber's appointment scheduled tomorrow, so it will hopefully get sorted, and you will see me tomorrow in a much more groomed manner, as you are seeing, a monkey right now on screen. But jokes apart, let's begin with the session. So, first things first, what I wanted to tell you was that there are different committees, different agendas. All of y'all are given respective, topics to basically discuss about, right? So, you must have also received a study guide or research material with your allotments as well. Now, what I want all of you to do over the next few days is essentially I want you to research more in detail. Don't only be dependent on the study guide, because that will give you like an overview of everything. But what you should also do is use the internet, use Google, and read about that topic more. Make notes, maybe in Microsoft Word, on your notepad, in Google Docs, or wherever you find it necessary, and essentially study about your country and how your country is involved in the entire agenda as well. Janaki, you are from which school, if I may ask? Sorry about that small technical glitch. Janaki, you are from which school? Alfin, I've actually shared it with your teacher. You could just check with her. Mrs. Deepa from school is who I've shared the entire details with. So maybe you could just connect with her. All the details will be there with her. Dhruvan, you've not really missed much. I was just complaining about my bare hairstyle today, and more importantly, focusing on the importance of us researching into our topics in detail, and essentially you could say understanding how a country is involved. So these are two things I want you to do when you have the free time as well, and beginning with the procedure. All right, so the first thing is we'll all meet on Friday. Thursday, of course, is the opening ceremony, so you don't need to worry about the procedure. But on Friday, when we meet for the first time, we will essentially enter into our classrooms, all right, or the committee rooms per se. So the first point in the rules of procedure is something which is called delegate representation. What is this delegate representation? So delegate representation basically means that each one of you are representing a particular country in a particular committee of this conference, and irrespective of which country you are representing, okay, irrespective of which country you're representing, everyone will have an equal say and an equal vote on all voting matters. All right, so remember, in MUN, essentially there is nothing like I what I want to do or what you want to do. All right, but what matters out here in MUN is what the committee, what the majority of people want to do in that committee. So everything that is done in the conference, everything that is done in the opening in the committee sessions, essentially they will essentially all be going under something called voting. All right. And each country and each one of you will have a single vote. Everyone will have one vote on all voting matters. This is what delegate representation essentially means. In terms of the communication language, okay, we will be recognizing both English as well as Malayalam. So you can speak in your mother tongue or you could speak in English. The chairpersons of your respective committees will be able to speak both the languages at large. So you can speak in English or Malayalam, whatever you are comfortable with. That is your second point in the procedure. Don't ask me questions right now in the chat box. Hear what I'm saying. I am going to have an exclusive session with you for all your doubts. All right. So stick to what I'm trying to explain to you right now. Then we will get into other things like the dress code and so on. So the second point, like I mentioned, is communication languages. You can speak in English as well as you can speak in Malayalam. The third point is electronic devices. Now, generally in school, we're not allowed electronic devices, right? But here, you are encouraged to bring your electronic devices. Why? Because you will have your study guide PDF copy in it. You'll have a copy of these rules of procedure and also the different research that you have independently conducted as well. The research that you have independently conducted as well can also be documented and kept inside your mobile phones or laptops or pads, which you can access during the conference. But please note that I know we all are really excited to bring our electronic devices and mobile phones, and we all love Instagram as well. But there will be a time and place for you to, take a few pictures or social media and whatever else that you want. But primarily during the discussions, during the formal discussions, at that juncture in time, please stick to using your electronic devices productively for the session. So please carry your electronic devices along with all the data that we have given you, the research material, your own research, a copy of the procedure, and so on. This is what your third point of your procedure is. Then we have something called decorum. All right. Decorum basically means, remember, in this MUN conference, we're not representing students anymore. We're not considered students anymore. Everyone's going to treat you like a leader of a country. Everyone's going to treat you like a mature adult, and you are also expected to behave in that way as well. So during all times of the conference, you need to maintain a certain sense of decorum, which basically means have fun, have a blast, talk, debate, make friends, do whatever you like. But any unparliamentary behavior, which basically means if you do something wrong in the committee, which may be morally wrong or maybe some personal remark, that will result to a temporary suspension in your committee session. Or if it's a very grave this thing, then it will be a permanent suspension from the conference. So it is your responsibility to behave like adults, to behave like mature people, and essentially maintain a good sense of decorum during the conference at large. Moving forward to something called informal voting, which you can see on your documents, point number 5. Like I mentioned in point number 1, every one of us is representing one country, correct? And each one of us has one vote on all voting matters. Now, there are two types of voting. Okay, there are two types of voting. There is informal voting and there is formal voting. During 99% of your conference and discussions, you will basically be doing informal voting. The only time you will do formal voting is during your resolution. So what is this informal voting? Informal voting is nothing but simple majority. Simple majority, which basically means that if there are 30 of you in a committee and 16 of you agree to do X particular thing or discuss a particular topic in the committee, then if 16 of you out of 30, which basically means more than 50%, say, okay, fine, we will do ABC, XYZ things, that is done through the mode of voting. All right. So, how does this voting basically ask? It is simply conducted. You will have a chairperson, okay, who's like your friend, who's like a moderator, who's going to help you and guide you through the committee. And they will ask when voting matters come up that all those in favor of X or all those opposing X. At that junction time, how we raise our hands in school when our teachers basically call out. Just like that, in this conference, you'll be having something called a placard, which will have your country or your portfolio's name printed upon it. You will Plaque, not black card, plaque card. Mr. Unknown is being racist. So, as I was saying, sorry for the joke. As I was saying, that we will raise our plaque card, okay, and that's how we will be recognized in the committee. So, you will basically raise your plaque card when it comes to the voting matters as such, and essentially simple majority, which basically means if more than 50% of people agree to a particular thing, then that thing will be put into motion or will pass in the conference. This is what your informal voting essentially is. Formal voting is something that I will explain to you. Point number 6, I will explain to you when we discuss the resolution. Okay, so these are the first few points I want to tell you. One is delegate representation, us representing a particular country. Second is the communication language. We can speak English and Malayalam both. Third point was electronic devices, where essentially we can bring it and we are encouraged to bring it for the right reason. Decorum is the fourth point, which basically means we have to be on a good behavior. Informal voting basically means a simple majority in the committee agreeing or disagreeing to a particular thing. Now, if you scroll lower to the seventh point, there is something called rules pertaining to the executive board. Okay, these are all big words. You don't need to get too, worked up about it. But essentially, executive board is like your class teachers. Okay, but they're really cool. They're really young, and they're very approachable and friendly as well. Like how you are being delegates today, they have completed a number of conferences over the years as delegates, and now have been promoted or rather moved forward in the MUN culture to something called an executive board. What is the executive board's roles and responsibilities? The executive board roles and responsibility. Each classroom has a class teacher. Same way, each committee has a chairperson. This chairperson is your friend. That chairperson, he or she is there to help you, to guide you, to mentor you, to direct you in the right discussions during the committee. Any difficulty you are facing, the chairperson is there. Any problem you are facing, the chairperson is there. Their goal is to make sure a number of things. One is they need to basically help the discussion and debate, help you discuss and debate amongst each other. Also, they will be the final authoritative body. How you have your parents at home who are the final decision makers, in your committee your chairperson will be the final decision maker of that committee or classroom. Please be very friendly with them. They're actually very nice people. You all will get along great. They're young, they're from your generation, they're very experienced in MUN, and they're there to help you. I've already told them that more than 95% of you, okay, all 95% of you are coming for an MUN for the first time. So they're well aware on how they need to guide you, how they need to mentor you, and how they need to take this entire initiative forward. So the chairpersons are known together as something called the executive board. This is what is point number 7. Then you have point number 8. Point number 8 is something which is called appeal. What is an appeal? Whenever you're facing any problem in the committee, you know how you're facing a problem at home, you go to your parents and tell them, you know what, I don't like these vegetables, I want to eat pizza, right? You appeal to your parents about, having something as such. Same way, if you're facing any grievance, any disconcern, any dissatisfaction, if you're not happy with something that is happening in committee, then you can appeal to the chair, which basically means you can tell the chairperson that, you know what, I'm facing so and so problem, please find a solution to it. Now, how do you appeal? Remember, I told you you have a plaque card, correct? You have a plaque card with your country or portfolio's name written on it. You simply need to raise your plaque card, okay, as you can see in point number 8 in italics, it's written, and say permission to appeal to the chair. Once the chairperson acknowledges you and gives you consent, you can go to the chairperson and in private you can tell the chairperson, okay, respected chairperson, this is my concern. And if they find it important, and if they find it you could say something of an actual situation, then they will basically look into solving it for you as well. So remember, the chairpersons are your friends, and essentially if you're facing any problem, you appeal to the chair and they will help you solve your concerns. The next point in the procedure is something which is called censure. Censure essentially means what? Is basically delegates and executive board, both members are subjected to censorship in case of disharmony in conducting proceedings. So this basically means that if there is a chairperson or if there is a delegate who is behaving inappropriately, who is doing something wrong, then at that juncture in time, you as a committee, all of you can censure, or you could say suspend or remove that particular delegate from the committee. This is what the term censure means, which basically means that if I am in the committee and I'm creating chaos and not allowing people to speak or not allowing committee to move in the right direction, then at that juncture in time, what I can do in the committee, what the committee can rather do to me is they can basically open a motion. As you can see in italics, it's written motion to censure the delegate of so and so country or so and so portfolio. This particular motion, this particular aspect requires two-thirds majority, which basically means that out of 30 people, 21 people should agree that okay, this delegate should be removed from the committee, or this delegate should be removed, or this chairperson should be removed from the committee as such. This is what essentially your what do you call that censure essentially means. Next up, you have something called Secretary General, which in this case would be the principal of our school, Mrs. Shireen. They are the apex authority of the conference, which basically means that if there is any major concern in the conference, the decision of the principal will be final on all matters concerning the conference or otherwise. This is the rules pertaining to the executive board and to all of you on how you can interact, engage, and have the interactions with your respective executive board members at large. Then we move on to debate rules. Now, this is the part where all of you play an active part in the committee. This is specifically only for you. So, the first thing that will happen, as you can see in point number 11, much like it happens in school, is something which is called attendance. We will all come and sit down in our classrooms. Our classrooms will be set up for us. They will be called committee rooms. Each desk will have a conference kit, which is yours. You can keep it for memories later on and use it at the conference. It will also have a placard on the table, which will mention your country's or portfolio's name. And essentially, what you need to do is you need to go and sit down in that. You need to go and sit down at the desk where your portfolio has been mentioned. Now, just like when we come to school, just like when we come to school, okay, just like when we come to school, at that juncture in time, we give attendance to our class teacher where we say present ma'am, present sir, right? When they call out our names and roll numbers, same way, even in the conference, there will be attendance that will take place first. But instead of saying present sir and present ma'am or your name or roll number, the chairperson will have a list of all the countries and portfolios in that classroom, in that committee. They will call out the country or port- portfolio you are representing. You will raise your placard and you will say delegate of India present and voting. This basically, we have to say present and voting. Why? Because you are saying that yes, I am present in this conference and yes, I will be casting my vote on all the voting matters considering this council. So present and voting is what you need to say. So they will essentially come and sit down. You will sit down in your committee in on your desk at your country's desk. Chairpersons will come in. They will start with attendance. They will take out the names of the delegates: delegate of India, delegate of Bahrain, delegate of Canada, delegate of Denmark. Once you hear your country's name, you will simply raise your placard and you will say delegate of so and so present and voting. As you remember in point number 1, we all have one vote for all voting matters. You will re-emphasize this when you raise your placard and say present and voting. This is what essentially present and voting and attendance essentially means. Point number 12 is not applicable to this conference, but I will still explain it to you because you should learn. Now, setting an agenda. You see, many conferences sometimes have more than one agenda in the same classroom. They might have two, three different topics that are being discussed in the committees. Considering this is the first time for all of us, we have decided to keep just one topic to make it easier for all of you. However, as a formality, we will need to pass a motion for this. We will need to pass a motion to set the agenda. Now, what is this term motion? If you would have observed, I have used this term a number of times, right? I have used this term a number of times. What does this term motion essentially mean? Motion basically means this, means that I am suggesting, as a delegate, I am suggesting we should do so and so thing in the committee. I am suggesting we should do this in committee. This is what the meaning of motion means. So everything is a motion because can only suggest or we can only put forth what we think should be done in the committee. All the motions will then be going through something called an informal vote. So essentially, you all will pass this motion. Okay, you will pass this motion of setting an agenda to begin your committee, where you will raise your placard. Any one of you will raise your placard, and essentially, you all will open a motion or motion to set the agenda and mention the agenda of your committee. If you're in Security Council, motion to set the agenda of discussing the Russia and Ukraine crisis. If you're in ECOSOC, motion to set the agenda of discussing AI and its global impact. This will be once again followed by an informal vote, right? Where 50% majority will vote, okay, let's start the discussions. We will start the discussions thereafter. This is what your term setting the agenda is. In this conference, it's merely a formality because we are having just one topic. Sometimes if you have multiple topics in future conferences, then the topics which get voted the most, those topics will be essentially discussed first in the committee. And thank God for coffee. So this is what motion essentially means. Motion in simple language means I am suggesting we should do XYZ things or so and so things in the committee. I am putting forward a request or an idea of doing so and so thing in the conference. That is what the term motion essentially means. Now coming to the general speakers list and the more important parts in point number 13. The general speakers list. The general speakers list is essentially an introductory speech, is a opening speech or opening address that needs to be done by all the delegates. Now, what is this opening ceremony, opening speech that you need to give or opening address you need to give? I'll tell you. It is a 90-second address, maximum 90-second speech you need to give. Okay. This 90-second speech essentially should just give a brief introduction on what your country and to a certain extent yourself think about this agenda. This opening address should reveal, are you for the topic or are you against the topic? And you can utilize a few examples that your country or the countries who are your friends have faced in the recent past. Taking for example Russia and Ukraine crisis, Poland will also make an opening ceremony, opening address, where they will say that because of Russia-Ukraine crisis, Poland's security is at threat, and there's a lot of refugees coming, and Poland is very angry with Russia and condemns the entire Russia-Ukraine war, especially Russia, because of what they've done. And essentially, what will happen in this opening ceremony address? You need to communicate to everybody else in that committee. You need to communicate to everybody else in that committee what your stance is. Are you for the topic or are you against the topic? Why this is very important? Because remember, I told you, whatever we do in the conference, everything is put to vote. Everything is not an individual decision. We put everything to vote primarily through informal vote. So it is very important for us to form teams, which in MUN is called blocks. Now there are certain countries that are very good friends with Russia and will always support Russia. And there are very many countries that support Ukraine and are good friends with Ukraine. The opening ceremony, the opening address in the general speakers list, this will give you, when you keep your ears open, who are your friends and who are your enemies in your committee. It's not necessarily your best friend from school is your best friend in committee. Your best friends in committee are the people who are supporting what your country think, what your country stands for. So all the people who are for the topic are one team. All the people who are against the topic are another team. And all the people are neutral. Both these countries, both these blocks need to try the level best to convince these neutral people to come this way or that way. Because at the end of the day, we require what? We require maximum votes, just like elections, just like politics. So this general speakers list is a 90-second introductory speech where you will showcase and you will communicate and you will share whether your country is for the topic or against the topic. That is what essentially you are going to be doing in the opening ceremony address. You have 90 seconds for it. Now, here one suggestion I have for you. I've seen many MUN conferences and many general speakers' speeches. Many people write down an essay from their teachers, their parents, and tuition teachers and come and read it out like that from a piece of paper in fancy words. Don't do that. You won't, it won't benefit you, neither will it benefit the committee. What you need to do is you need to just put down some points on a piece of paper and elaborate in your own words, speak in your own words, in your own language, however you are comfortable. You are not going to get big marks for using words that Dr. Shashi Tharoor uses, but you will get marks for the relevance and information you have shared. So don't go around using a A4 size paper and reading out like that, which generally happens in a lot of MUN conferences. Rather, come here and just share your opinions as though you are talking to me or your best friends. That is what you should do in your general speakers list speech. You have 90 seconds to do so. Now, there will be times when 90 seconds might be less, which is your problem. But there may be sometimes when 90 seconds is less, where you have an option, as you can see in point number 14, called yields. Yield basically means I have spoken for, say, for example, I'm delegate of Poland. I've given general speakers the speech for 60 seconds. I still have 30 seconds with me. I should use that 30 seconds wisely. So to use that wisely, I can use this tool called yields, which is in point number 15, where essentially there are three types of yields. I can yield to the chair. I can say yield basically means I'm giving my time away, whatever's remaining. Yield to the chair basically means that I have given my opening address for 90 seconds, for 60 seconds, or 30 seconds left. These 30 seconds, the chairperson of superhero conflict is same in section. These 30 seconds which are essentially there, you can yield this time, one to the chairperson. That chairperson, who is your chairperson of the committee, will decide best which is the best way to use that 30 seconds that you have yield to them. The second topic, the second type of yield is to comments. Okay. In comments, what you can do here is you can open the committee floor to comments. Essentially, here what happens is you have given a opening ceremony address, and you have noticed that other people have listened to your address. If you want to know what other people think, if you want to know what other people think about the address you have given, to get their views, whether they agree or disagree with you, then you can yield to comments, where basically the chairperson will give a chance to other committee members to share a comment. or share their thoughts on what opening address you have given. This is what yield to comments is. It will give you a pulse. It will give you an understanding of what other people think in the committee based on what you have said. So you can accordingly make strategy to get them on your team and find out how they can be beneficial to your campaign in the committee. And the third type of yield is something called yield to questions. You may give a address. You might notice that okay, some people are looking like they want to ask you some questions, or they may be looking to clarify something with you. So at that juncture time you can yield to questions, where the chairperson will open the floor to the other delegates in your committee, where they can ask you questions based on what you have said in your general speakers list speech. So if you feel that okay, this person seems a little confused what I've said, or this person will probably have questions on what I'm trying to say, maybe they've not understood, or maybe they want some further clarifications, then you can yield to questions. This is what yields are. So coming to our committee once again to revise. We first come, we give our attendance, say present and voting so and so country. Then we raise our placard, any one person, and set the agenda to discuss the topic we have selected to discuss. Then we go to the general speakers list, which is essentially Everdeen, I'm going to explain everything to you in a particular format. So don't ask me to explain particular questions or particular things right now. Let me follow the whole flow. And after I finish the flow, I have kept the third session only for your doubts. At that time, you can ask me these questions. Right now, just understand what I am trying to say in terms of the procedure. And after I finish everything I want to share with you, then you list down your questions. I will answer each one of them. And not just for you, Everdeen, but for everybody at large. Coming back to what I'm trying to say, first we give our attendance, then we set the agenda, then we have the general speakers list, introductory speech where we have 90 seconds. In case we don't finish the 90 seconds, we can yield our time, which means using the time allotted to us more productively. You can yield to the chairperson, where the chair will decide best how to use it. You can yield to comments, where you can open the floor to comments, where other people can share their thoughts on what you have said. And you can yield to questions, which basically means you can open the floor to the other participants to ask you questions based on what you have said. This is what your conference will kickstart with. This is how your discussions will start. Moving forward, you will have something called moderated caucus. Okay, moderated caucus. So, what is this moderated caucus? I'll tell you. Now, the agenda, the agenda is very vast. Every one of them. You look at Russia and Ukraine, some of you know in orientation that I told you about how India is involved, how other countries are involved, oil, economy, finance, so many different, parameters or variables are there. Now, looking at such a big, deep agenda, where do we begin from? We begin from something called moderated caucus. Now, just like how you have a geography textbook in school, that whole textbook has multiple chapters: chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4, and so on and so forth. All four chapters of your geography textbook together make your whole geography textbook and full syllabus. Like your geography textbook, your agenda should also be broken or split into different sub agendas or different modules or chapters, just like your geography textbook. These sub agendas are then discussed in detail through something called moderated caucus. Through something called moderated caucus. So, how does it work? It is a motion. Just like how you have motion to censure or motion to do whatever thing. Motion means what? I am suggesting we should do so and so. Moderated caucus basically is a motion to discuss a particular subtopic of the main agenda. So how do you open a motion for a moderated caucus? Let me give you again Russia-Ukraine example. Suppose we're discussing oil, since I told you about oil in Russia and Ukraine crisis, all of you all are familiar. Suppose we're discussing oil, one of us, whoever wants to raise a motion, anyone can raise. It's not like you have to wait for someone to tell you it's your conference, it's your platform, it's your voice. So essentially, your motion to open a moderated caucus to discuss oil and its trade for total time length 7 minutes and time per speaker 1 minute. This moderated caucus basically means what? This moderated caucus basically means in the Russia Ukraine crisis, we are going to be discussing the trade of oil in the world for 7 minutes, and each speaker in this moderated caucus will get 1 minute to speak. Anyone can raise this motion. You are encouraged to raise the motion for moderated caucus. In fact, what you should do in your research, as I mentioned before, is you should research and list down maybe 7 to 10 different moderated caucus topics that you can introduce in the committee to discuss those topics in detail. This you should do yourself. Now 35-40 students are sitting. I am one student. I raise my placard and I say, motion to open a moderated caucus to discuss oil and its usage and its trade for 7 minutes and time per speaker 1 minute. Now I have raised this motion, only me. Anyone can raise, even you can raise, anyone can raise, doesn't matter. But just because I have raised the motion, that does not mean that motion will be discussed. Just like every other motion, it will go, like I explained before, through the informal voting. Through the informal voting. Then the chairperson will accept this motion and he will ask the committee and all of you, all those in favor of discussing this moderated caucus, please raise your placards. So this topic I have raised of discussing oil, all those who also want to discuss this topic, they will raise their placards. Then the chairperson will ask all those opposing or not wanting to discuss this topic, please raise your placards. So all those who don't want to discuss that topic, they will then raise their placards. Then, as I mentioned, informal voting based on the majority, simple majority. If out of 30 people, 25 people have said, okay, Prashant will discuss about global trade of oil, then that motion will pass. That motion will pass and that discussion will be activated in the committee. Now, the beauty about opening a moderated caucus and the advantage for the person who raises this motion or takes initiative in saying, okay, come on, let's discuss this subtopic. If that motion passes, the person or the delegate who has raised that motion, they will get an option. If they want to speak first or they want to speak last in that motion. My suggestion to you is always speak last if you are the one who has started the moderated caucus in your committee. Why it is advantageous, I'll tell you. Because you have raised a moderated caucus basically means you have a lot of information to share. But there is a limit of 1 minute on this moderated caucus. 6 other people apart from you can speak in this motion. You never know. Maybe some of the points that you were going to say, if you would have spoken first, maybe some other delegate or some other student would have covered that point for you. So you can use that 1 minute allocated to you more wisely and emphasize or explain further on something that another student or another delegate has not brought up in that moderated caucus discussion. So my suggestion is you raise your placard, open the motion for moderated caucus. You are encouraged to do so. If that motion is voted upon, you will get an option. Should I vote for or should I vote? Should I speak first or should I speak last? You will always choose to speak last so that you have the advantage of knowing what other people have said, and based on that, using your 1 minute more efficiently in this moderated caucus. There is no limit on how many times you can open moderated caucus. There is no limit on how many times you can speak in moderated caucus. It is dependent on you and the committee and the chairperson. What you need to do is, in your research that you're going to be doing based on your country's involvement or whatever, you will list out 5 to 7 moderated caucus topics minimum that you can bring up in committee, that not only you can discuss but other people can also discuss. Because if I choose moderated caucus that discusses only me as Poland, then everybody else won't want to discuss it. No, we have to take everybody into consideration when it comes to the moderated caucus topic as such. So this is what your moderated caucus is. How do you raise it? You raise your placard, motion to open a moderated caucus to discuss the global trade of oil for total time length 7 minutes and time per speaker 1 minute. This will go through the informal voting, where again by show of placards, simple majority, this motion for moderated caucus will pass, or this motion for moderated caucus will fail. This is what a moderated caucus is. It is an in detail discussion of a particular subtopic. General speakers list gives you a complete purview, complete stand, saying that okay, we are for a topic, we are against a topic, here's the reason why. Moderated caucus takes a magnifying glass and breaks that topic into multiple subtopics. In a moderated caucus topic, which is global trade of oil, which has been raised, you cannot speak about refugees. That is a different moderated caucus topic. Here, in moderated caucus topic, you will only speak on that subtopic if you want to speak. It is optional, your choice. This is what moderated caucus topic essentially is. This is what moderated caucus essentially means. Now, every committee has a cycle. It goes moderated caucus, unmoderated caucus, and again moderated caucus. Let me explain to you what unmoderated caucus is. Moderated caucus is a formal discussion on a subtopic of the main agenda in detail. Unmoderated caucus is an informal discussion, also known as lobbying. I'm explaining to you currently point number 16. In unmoderated caucus, you can get up from your seats and go and talk to all the other delegates informally. Why this is important? Because remember, the success of a delegate in an MUN conference is not necessarily whether they are right or wrong, morally right or morally wrong, great speakers or okay speakers. The success of a delegate is when they have maximum people supporting them and gaining maximum votes on the different voting matters. So for you have only one vote, 35 people in your committee also have only one vote. Your objective is to get as many as those 35 people voting for what you want. So for this, you need to negotiate. For this, you need to be diplomatic. For this, you need to approach other delegates and say, bro, let's work together on this agenda. I will help you with ABC, XYZ things, and you help me with ABC things. It's all about forming alliances. How sometimes you tell your parents that, dad, once my exams get over and I get good grades, then you will send me for dinner with my friends, or you will call for me pizzas. That is a negotiation you're doing, no? That if I get O grade or if I get 95%, then I will get a new mobile phone, right? That is a deal you're cracking. Same way in the real world, also people crack deals like this in United Nations as well. Just like how Russia and India struck the oil deal. This is negotiations, this is lobbying, this is diplomacy. Where another country is helping me and I am also helping another country. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. The whole world works like this, including the actual United Nations. Yes. I don't mean literally scratch each other's backs in committee, okay? I mean that support one another and get as many people to support you. That is what will essentially get the success for you in the committee. This lobbying, this negotiations, this discussions and support and garnering support is done through unmoderated caucus. This can also be done and initiated from now itself on your committee WhatsApp groups. We have created each committee's WhatsApp group, so all of you from the different schools representing the different portfolios can connect with one another. Right now, the messages are strict admin only, and once everybody joins over the next day, it will be activated and you can interact with everybody else in your committee and finding out who is your team members, who are your friends, who are not your friends, who are your enemies, who are alliances, and so on and so forth. These committee links have been shared with your school teachers. You need to access those and join the relevant group that you've done. You can already start lobbying and you can already start engaging with one another. Unmoderated caucus during your committee on the days of the conference. Unmoderated caucus is a time when you will get up from your chairs and go and interact with all the other delegates. Not go and meet your best friend from school, but go and meet your best friend who has the same interest as the country you are representing and work with them collectively to create a stronger team, the stronger army, the stronger vote bank. This is what your unmoderated caucus is for. Unmoderated caucus is also used for something called working paper. This is the last point we will be completing today, so please pay attention. Very important point. Working paper. Moderated caucus. Coming back to moderated caucus. Moderated caucus is a detailed discussion on one of the subtopics of the whole agenda. Moderated caucus is a detailed discussion on one of the subtopics. Now, detailed, after you've had an in-depth discussion on the global trade of oil, 7, 8 people, 10 people, whatever, have shared their thoughts, shared their ideas, shared their concerns, shared their problems, shared the positives, shared the negatives in that moderated caucus topic. So that means in our geography textbook, we have completed chapter 1. Okay, we have completed discussing a particular moderated caucus. Same way, we have completed discussing chapter 1 of our geography textbook. Now, at the end of our chapter 1 in geography textbook, there are fill in the blanks, objectives, solutions, and so on and so forth. Right? Same way, same way, there is something called a working paper. This working paper is the solution to the detailed subtopic you have discussed in the moderated caucus. You've had the whole discussion on global trade and oil in moderated caucus. Now you will make something called a working paper. which is a solution, which is a solution to just that subtopic, not the full geography textbook, just chapter 1, solution to chapter 1, solution to subtopic 1 is known as a working paper. There is no format for a working paper. You simply need to write point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, and so on and so forth for the solution. You don't need to write any formal way. Just write working paper 1.0, committee name, agenda name, subtopic, the moderated caucus subtopic, which you have discussed in detail. Write that subtopic and then write point number 1, write the solution about global oil and trade. That if oil is going to be continuously traded, then a certain percentage of that is going to go to help Ukraine in the crisis that they're facing. If certain oil is going to be traded, then the selling price of that oil needs to be capped to ensure that global oil prices remain stable. So your in detailed discussion of that subtopic you've had in moderated caucus, the solution to that in detail subtopic, chapter 1, is known as your working paper. There is no format. You just write the name of your committee, you write the name of the agenda, and you write the name of the subtopic. Then you write point 1, point 2, point 3, and how many ever points you want to write is up to you. This working paper is written during the unmoderated caucus. Apart from just lobbying and negotiating and being diplomatic with each other, unmoderated caucus is also used for writing the working paper. You don't need to sit and write it alone. It's not your individual responsibility to do it. Remember, we have teams, right? For the topic, against a topic, blocks are formed. So your block will make that working paper together. Everyone can contribute maybe 1.5 point, no problem. Now the thing about working paper is, just because you have made the working paper, that does not mean that solution is going to be accepted by everyone. That solution, you have put your point saying that this is going to benefit Ukraine. I'm very happy. I'll get a lot of money because oil trade, certain percentage is coming to me, no problem. But you must understand that other people need to vote for it as well, because a working paper does not pass just by you writing it in unmoderated caucus. The working paper is put to vote, and it is put through the informal vote again, where only if more than 50% of the committee, 50% of the participants say, okay, we will vote for this working paper, let's go forward with this solution to subtopic 1, only then will the working paper be passed. Else it will fail. Which basically means what? Which basically means that if you are going to look from a narrow perspective and not from a global perspective, saying that okay, this is going to benefit my country, so I am going to put this in working paper, it's not going to work, because only you will vote for that working paper. What about the 30 other students? Who are they going to vote for? They are going to vote for what benefits them and their countries in the committee. So in the unmoderated caucus, when you are being diplomatic, when you are negotiating, when you are liaising, when you are trading with each other, saying that okay, you know what, I am going to put your point. Poland will come and say, listen, brother, you put a certain thing for my country as well, because a lot of your refugees are coming to my country also. So Ukraine will say, okay, we'll put this point also. Then that working paper is taken into consideration, both Ukraine and Poland. So both of them will probably vote for the working paper as well. What I'm trying to tell you is that it is important for you to not only think about your own country. Yes, put the things which are beneficial for you in the working paper, no doubt, but also take into consideration the concerns of your team members and friends in the committee, because they also need to vote on the working paper. Because only if you vote on the working paper, then only you are, it's going to fail, right? 25 people like, dude, what the hell? I'm not going to vote for this. They'll bring their own working paper and come. Hence, you must take into consideration the working paper at large. This is what a working paper essentially is, and is made and drafted during the unmoderated caucus. You can very comfortably make your working paper on your mobile phones, laptops, and pads as well. No one is telling you to write an exam out here. Open a Word document, type committee, agenda, subtopic, and just put bullet points. Bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatever innovative, creative thought you'll have, taking into consideration everybody together as a team. Write that solution out there in the working paper at large. Then the working paper will be given to the chairperson and will be put to the vote. If more than 50% people say, okay, we will vote for this working paper, it will pass. If more than 50% say, no, we are not voting for this, the working paper will fail. Hence, you must take into consideration all the concerns, all the points of all other countries involved as well. This is what a working paper essentially is, and is made in what you called an unmoderated caucus. To quickly summarize how your discussions are going to go in 90 seconds, I want you to close your eyes and visualize again. You will all walk into committee. You all will all sit on your desks. There will be a conference kit and your placard representing your country waiting for you. The chairperson will walk inside. You will raise your placard when you takes the attendance and say present and voting. Committee will start with the general speakers list. We will give our introductory speeches, realize who all are in our teams, who all are with us, who all are against us. Then the committee will evolve whenever somebody feels that okay, in between the general speakers list at any time you can raise a placard, open the motion for moderated caucus, in detailed discussion of a subtopic of the agenda, moderated caucus, certain time period, certain speakers, in detail we will discuss that chapter 1 or subtopic 1. After discussing that subtopic 1 in detail, we will break into unmoderated caucus where we will talk to everybody, take into consideration everyone's thoughts and ideas and solutions and problems, make the working paper in a very simple format: name of committee, name of agenda, name of subtopic, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. After unmoderated caucus is over, submit that working paper to the chairperson. Chairperson will put it to vote. If it is taken into consideration by everybody and voted upon, it will either pass, it will either fail. This is how the cycle of your committee is going to flow: moderated caucus, unmoderated caucus, moderated caucus, mod, unmod, mod. They're just fancy words, but the explanation, as you can see, is as simple as it gets. With that, we are going to conclude with today's session. Okay, I don't want to give you an information overload. We have finished the first half of the ROP. Tomorrow, same time, we will have the session on the second half of the ROP. And the third session that we will have on Wednesday is all the doubts that you are putting in the chat box. All those doubts you can ask me in the third session after I complete explaining to you the whole rules of procedure at large. That being said, always a pleasure and privilege to talk with you, wonderful people. Can't wait to meet all of you. Quick reminder, I have shared with your school: one, the final conference itinerary; two, committee specific WhatsApp groups so all of you all can liaison and connect with each other and start figuring out who your team members and who your enemies and friends are; and three, I have also shared the dress code in the conference itinerary as well. First day is your Western formals, second day is your traditionals, and third day is your Western formals. When I say traditional, you don't need to dress up like a Chinese man or woman. If you're representing China, you have to dress up as an Indian, as a South Indian at the conference. That because we are very proud of our culture, of course, especially in Kerala. I am also planning to find out how I can get a mund for myself as well. That being said, pleasure and privilege as always. See you tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. for session 2 of the training session. Don't forget the research that I told you. Go to Google, read about your topic, read about how your country is concerned with the topic, and make 5 to 7 moderated caucus or subtopic detailed discussions you would like to have as well. That being said, lots of love and light. See you tomorrow, 5:30. Bye bye.